thank you for joining us for this important event, SOHO. It's a Game Changers event where we are doing what we can do as it relates to the pandemic based on gender-based violence. I'm Audrey Johnson, your host this morning, and we had a few technical difficulties, so if you've been with us since the beginning, we thank you. I think we got those all taken care of, and we're glad that you are still here. Stay with us for the entirety. This is going to be a very robust discussion between Oakwood University as well as the organization SOHO. SOHO stands for Saving Orphans Through Healthcare and Outreach. And I want to bring to the screen at this time, through this virtual event, the CEO and co-founder of SOHO, Ms. Cynthia Prime. Good morning, Ms. Prime. Welcome.
Welcome to our 9th annual Hope Rising event. This year, for the first time, it's virtual. And so we have problems here and there, but we are delighted to be here. Saving Orphans Through Healthcare and Outreach is a 14-year-old nonprofit organization based in Indianapolis, Indiana, with sister organizations in Eswatini, formerly known as Swaziland. Hope Rising began as an effort to raise awareness of the issues faced by child-headed households in Eswatini, and to generate support for the programs that benefit them. And in that process, we've become aware that social issues such as gender-based violence affecting girls and women are equally relevant here in the US as they are in South Africa. So in this event, we bring together leaders from both continents to wrestle with these issues and to explore ways that we can be part of the solution. I'm thrilled to welcome women who have been honored by SOHO as trailblazers in the world. So trailblazer Ntombi Naomi Tutu has many titles and a famous name, but as you will learn, she's a woman who's charting her own path as a game changer in our society. We are so glad to have you, Naomi. Delighted that you're here. Yvonne Shaka Shaka, Princess of Africa, your music, your passion for social justice and compassionate heart are changing hearts all over the world. And thank you also for being there. Dawn Minat is a new friend, a dedicated Christian professional advocating for women and girls at the UN. So welcome, Dawn. Gail Hamilton Masando is more than a mover and shaker and advisor to SOHO. This event is possible because of her assistance. She's a sister, prayer partner, and friend. Welcome. And Christina Hale is one of the beacons of light in the state of Indiana, who has worked tirelessly on social issues such as human trafficking and gender-based violence. Glad you all are here. You will also hear from inspiring SOHO ambassadors, and they will encourage you as you see their courage. I'm proud of these SOHO daughters. SOHO is about finding solutions to the plight of the vulnerable population we serve. And in this process, we engage partners. We are glad to welcome Oakwood University as our newest partner in development of a village of hope on our large mountainside farm in Eswatini. Thank you, President Leslie Pollard, for being part of this initiative. This is going to be a very impacting program, and we want you to stay with us. There'll be some surprises for you, but we want now to welcome and introduce our MC from Oakwood University, Dr. Audrey Johnson, General Manager of Station OUBM on the Oakwood University campus. Thank you all for hosting us.
Thank you, Ms. Cynthia Prime. Ms. Cynthia Prime is the CEO and co-founder of SOHO, Saving Our Orphans Through Healthcare and Outreach. This Game Changer event happens, this is the 8th year that it's happened, and it has been from 2 different continents, the continent of Africa and the continent of North America. These 2 continents get together and they have game changers who are making major strides in both continents to make sure that this pandemic of violence, culturally based violence, gender-based violence against women comes to an end. And so I'm going to invite right now none other than the daughter of Archbishop Desmond Tutu. We're so glad that she is here. Nantombi Naomi Tutu. Not only is she the daughter of the trailblazer, one of the trailblazers of the world, she is also challenging and growing females so they do not become a part of this pandemic. Through the apartheid, and we all know the man her father was, and we're glad that she is here with us today. She leads workshops to end conflict and racism. And she also has a long Rolodex of information and education, including educating for the African Gender Institute at the University of Cape Town. So I'm going to welcome right now Reverend Tutu. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And it is indeed an honor to be here, and I am very proud of my Trailblazer Award from Soho. Let us get ready to pray. Please bow your head, sit, stand, whatever is the position of reverence for you. The Lord be with you. Bawethu sidibene apha singabantwana bakho. Ucela ukuthi nawe uze ube nathi. Usincede kulomsebenzi esizama ukuwenza. Re kopa ntate hore o hlonolofatse mosebetsi ona wa rona. O hlonolofatse bomme ba rona, bonkgono ba rona, le meradi ya rona. O rute bontate ba rona, bo abuti ba rona, banna ba rona. Ho hlone hore mosadi ke mpho e kgolo. So Lord, we ask that as we are gathered here today, you will bless our hearts, you will bless our mouths, you will bless our ears, so that we are open to learning, so that we speak words of wisdom, challenge, and comfort, so that we listen with ears of compassion, and that we are able to leave this place ready to continue the work to make this the kingdom of your rule, a kingdom of justice, peace, and respect for one another. All this we ask in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Tutu, for that powerful prayer. We are most definitely standing with you as we are reaching to make sure that this pandemic ends. I'm going to welcome none other than our president at Oakwood University, Dr. Leslie N. Pollard, this time, to tell what this organization means to the university. Dr. Pollard?
Good morning, everyone, from Oakwood University. I'm Leslie Pollard, president of Oakwood University, and we are delighted today to partner with Soho under the leadership of Dr. Cynthia Prime. We think that it's very important that we combine our efforts with the efforts of all people of goodwill to advance the good causes of the kingdom in this world. As I think about the topic today that we are addressing, my mind went back as I searched for a word of welcome. My mind actually went all the way back to the great Malcolm X's famous speech. He was giving a speech in the Audubon Ballroom in 1965, the place where he was assassinated. But just before that, about 3 weeks earlier, he made an intriguing observation, and he was probably one of the first public intellectuals to come forward with this assessment of the civil rights movement and the civil rights dilemma that was facing Black people in America in the 1960s. As a matter of fact, I think it is a parallel, direct parallel to what we are dealing with today in terms of gender violence. Let me read, please, just what he has to say. Here is what he said. He said, "We are Black Americans, and we have a problem that goes beyond religion." Of course, from there, you know, Malcolm did his improvisation. You were Black before you were Baptist. You were Black before you were Catholic, et cetera, et cetera. But then he gave what I believe was one of the most poignant insights into the dilemma of civil rights. He said, we feel that the problem, number one, of the Black man in America is beyond America's ability to solve. It is a human problem, not an American problem or a Negro problem. As a human problem or a world problem, we feel that it should be taken out of the jurisdiction of the United States government and the United States courts and taken into the United Nations in the same manner that the problems of the Black man in South Africa, Angola, and other parts of the world, and even the way they're trying to bring the problems of the Jews in Russia into the United Nations because of the violations of human rights. We believe that our problem is not one of civil rights, but a violation of human rights. Not only are we denied the right to be a citizen in the United States, we are denied the right to be a human being. Those words, not only are they prophetic, but they are poignant. As we think about the problem, the shadow pandemic, as our Hope Rising conference has named it today, the shadow pandemic of domestic and gender-based violence, this is a problem of human rights, the right to full personhood. And part of what we are addressing today are ways and strategies and means by, first of all, providing conscience and opening a window of understanding, but also mobilizing for action so that we can exterminate this dreaded violation. The United Nations Women Organization has joined, and we are so grateful that they too, the United Nations, has identified this as a major human rights issue in the 21st century. We at Oakwood are glad to partner with you, and we trust that the time we spend together today would be helpful in finding solutions to this persistent, pervasive, and painful problem.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pollard, on letting us know how we need to mobilize for this game-changing event. And this is not just an event, it's a conversation about growing hope as we are partnering with SOHO, saving orphans through healthcare and outreach. I want to invite at this time one of our associate professors at the university in the Department of Social Work, as they are working with this organization as well. Dr. Shalonda Sherrod, welcome.
I am an assistant professor at Oakwood University. I also serve as the club sponsor for our UNICEF program at Oakwood University Social Work Department. I want to just take this opportunity on behalf of Dr. Ramirez, who is the chair of our department, and the faculty, staff, and students of our department, to just say thank you for this opportunity to allow us to partner with you in this amazing initiative. One of the things that our students have done over the last probably 3 years has, with the exception of this year for the pandemic, has been to attend the United Nations Social Work Day at the United Nations in New York. And we have been excited about the opportunity to partner with initiatives such as UNICEF to look at humanitarian and developmental efforts for the aid of children. And we are equally excited to partner with Hope Rising in this initiative in their mission to end the international pandemic of gender-based violence against women and girls. And so we're just excited. As we thought about how we might partner with SOHO, we considered how we could bring awareness to our students and allow our students to gain new experiences through this partnership. We thought about how we could share in this partnership through internships, allowing our students to partner with this organization through internships. And so we are just delighted again to be a part of this process. As a social worker, we adhere to our code of ethics, which is to respect the dignity and rights of every person and all persons. And we just look forward to the opportunity to do that with our students in the social work department. So thank you again for this opportunity.
Let's stand together. Let's walk hand in hand. Let our voice be heard loud and clear for the children of our land. Let's stand together. Let's walk hand in hand. There's one mission, one goal in our minds. It's the children of our land.
There's a truth worth standing for, a hope that should never ever die. The children are our future. This is a mother's cry. There's a truth worth standing for, a hope that should never ever die. The children are our future. This is a mother's cry.
Let's stand together. Let's walk hand in hand. Let our voice be heard loud and clear for the children of our land. Let's stand together. Let's walk hand in hand. There's one mission, one goal in our minds for the children of our land.
There's a truth worth standing for, a hope that should never ever die. The children are our future. This is a mother's cry. There's a truth worth standing for, a hope that should never die. The children are our future. This is a mother's cry.
Language. Yes, we can. There's no word more demoralizing in the English language than the word can't. You feel your hands are tied, but you can't break free. Your feet are tied, you can't run from danger. Your mouth is taped, you can't call for help. Can't accentuates our inability to do anything to save ourselves or anyone else. So you take the T and you have the word can. It's a word that smells of possibilities and opportunities and capability, empowering, impacting, exhilarating, the word can. It's defined as being physically or mentally able to do something. The something we want to do today is to help change the game on gender-based abuse. Eswatini is one of the most beautiful undiscovered places on the continent of Africa. They call it the Switzerland of the continent. It's also the last remaining absolute monarchy and a polygamous society. 1 in 3 girls experience sexual abuse, and that figure is true of much of South Africa. I used to think that the US was exempt until I learned that traffickers are doing a very brisk business right here at home. It is the needs of the children in Eswatini that inspired the Soho's involvement in social advocacy. To this day, I remember during one of our volunteer clinics, when the physician said, take this 6-year-old girl to the government clinic as quickly as possible. And as we were taking her into the vehicle, he said, hold up, there's another. Victims of sexual violation. And that's when I wept and felt helpless. But something rose up in me to say, enough is enough. Yes, we could do something to make a difference. And today's forum is one of those positive actions. Through your support of causes such as this, we can advocate for children running households who pay for bread with their future. We can educate and empower vulnerable children so that they have alternatives to trafficking and abuse. We can energize dialogue in our schools and churches and homes to look at ways we can end this pandemic that does not require a vaccine. So you will meet 3 girls today, girls who faced their monsters but did not give up. One of the things they all have in common is this small organization, SOHO, that stepped in and intervened. So this is a message to all of us from these 3 ambassadors that we can. We can be a voice to those who are too broken to speak up. We can give time, talent, treasure, so that the children who are hope seekers can find hope. We can dialogue and raise awareness of a pandemic we can control. And that's why we are here, so that little girls can become champions and little boys can become advocates for equity. That's why this place called Insaba exists, to bring universities and professionals and ordinary people to be that village that will save the children. Much of the land in Swaziland, or Iswazi Nation land, is held in trust by the king for the Swazi people. For 8 years, we prayed for a place where we could get title deed land to be able to build a refuge. We would have been happy for 30 acres of title deed land, but when God answered our prayers, he gave us Insaba, a stunning 1,075 plus acres of mountainside beauty, where we are going to be developing a village of hope for children at risk of trafficking and abuse. And Oakwood University is our new partner in this God-sized dream. I want you to imagine safe housing for these children. I want to share, if I can, some of the designs that were created so that you can see what kind of structures we have in mind. Safe housing, we want to provide quality education. There's going to be a chapel at the highest point so that these children can come to learn that they are so valuable. Change is necessary. Change has to come about. Our goal, I want to share with you, for this event is not only to raise awareness, but I want to tell you some basic needs we have right now there. And this beautiful place where Oakwood University, Andrews University, and others are helping. We need right now 3 what they call boreholes. They're wells that will serve the children, that will serve the farm building and the agriculture. They're $3,500 each. I need 3 people who would be willing to get a well for us. We need a place where the children can be fed and served while the housing is developed. We want a cafeteria and multi-purpose structure where we can begin to nurture these children even before their housing is put together. And that is the budget of $120,000 we have. It will help us to serve 100 children. It's manageable if we all come together. I want you to know that any contributions you make are tax deductible. We need you, not just your funds. We need skills and abilities. And here is how you can contribute to SOHO. Our website, take the information down, is saving-orphans.org. Saving-orphans.org. You can donate securely online, or you can call at 317-779-0001. For those in South Africa, you can email info@savingorphans.com, and we will assist you in making your contributions directly to INSABA. So let's eliminate tea in can. Here is some quick suggestions. Good men must teach young men that strong men are gentlemen. Bullies are weaklings camouflaging their insecurities with injury and insults. We got to recognize that God does not give skills by sex and gifts by gender. He gives an equal place at the table of life to everyone. We shouldn't allow social inequity to be entertaining no matter who the comedian is. Aggression and abuse have become the new normal, and yes, we can do something about that. So let's be the village that will raise the children to be whole and not broken future ladies. You've taken a step forward just by being a part of this discussion. We welcome you today. The best is yet to come. There are 3 young women that you are going to be learning about who are living proof that yes, we can. I want you to lend them your ear and your heart. The first is Flangiwing. This is a girl whom I met around the age of 11, and her sister Pendili was just a little bit older. They were parenting themselves more or less in a one-room hut at the end of the sugarcane fields. Pendila begins the story with her concerns about what happened to her sister. Just listen to the bits that Pendila Batlengiwe begins the story with what happened from her perspective. Just listen to what she shares.
The place where we stayed, it was a very long distance from school to my home. So it was a very narrow road with bushes on the sides. So it was very, very scary. And one time my sister was delayed at school, so she had to walk alone. Like, it's better off when we walk in groups. So she had to walk alone, and while she was walking, 2 men followed her, and she was raped. So it was very sad and so traumatizing because everything changed. She wasn't herself anymore. She ran away from home. She was just something else. Having somebody to sleep with you because he wants to give you money, that is an abuse. I feel like we are all exposed to these things because of the needs. Like, men take advantage of the fact that we need money, we need provision. So they feel like they have the power to do whatever they want with us. We need to be strong and trust in God that in whatever situation that you are in, honestly speaking, it's going to pass. One of the things I would say that I would advise for a lot of girls to do is reach out for help. You know, if you have that somebody that you trust, that you can talk to, go and reach out, because the more you confine yourself with something that you're uncomfortable with, is the more you think that life is not worth it. Why am I still alive? That is when suicide starts to strike, which is something that is not good. And I think praying is everything. If you pray, you ask God to help you. You ask for His guidance because He's always watching. Trust me. Everything will just sort itself out. You know, you will just find a way, because sometimes you just don't know what to do, you don't know who to talk to, you don't know, you just think if you do this it's going to be wrong, what is who going to say, and everybody's going to dislike you because you turned in somebody who was abusive to you. No, it doesn't work like that. You just have to reach out for help and you'll be fine. I am pursuing education, diploma in education. So in 5 years time, I think if I'd be singing to people, heal them through my voice, make them be born again through my voice, I think I was called for that, and I love it. Soho has been so helpful to me, to my life, to my family. Ever since we met Soho, our life changed. They provided us with food, clothing, almost everything, school tuition, because we would go to school barefooted. They provided us with all the needs that we needed at that moment, and actually every time. So Soho is my family, Soho is everything to me, and I really, really appreciate everything that Soho has done for me. I am who I am now because of Soho.
That did not work out well for me. I'm still here. So means it didn't work. Maybe it wasn't supposed to work because I had to be here for this day, and I still have to be here for something more important. That's probably why it didn't work. But I'm glad it didn't work. I wanted it to work then, but I'm glad it didn't. I would have missed out on life. So when you're a kid, or a child, or a teenager, doesn't matter what age, you've been dependent on someone, and then overnight there's no one to depend on. You have to learn to get soap for yourself. Where do I get soap from? Where do I get the money to get the soap from? So I managed to graduate with my first degree. I went back and did my postgraduate certificate in education, so I could get permanent employment as a teacher. They paid for that. They should have stopped it way before now. It wouldn't have gotten to some of us. We've gone through it, and for some reason we think it's okay. We've been thinking it's okay. We've been thinking it's normal. This is what happens, but this is not normal. This is not supposed to be happening, but it is happening because we as a society are letting it happen. I mean, it depends on us, honestly. I have a daughter, so if I was violated, what makes me think she's not going to be violated? So right now as parents, as citizens, we have a duty to the next generation. Make sure we provide a safer place for them. It only begins with us, honestly. If we don't change it, what makes us think they can? Someone should have changed it before we got here, but someone did not. And then we are just going to do the same thing. It will just keep going on and on and on forever. But it's high time we just put an end to this. It's really high time we gave girls a voice, because they have a voice. If they lose theirs, we have voices. Why don't we scream on their behalf? Why aren't we doing something on their behalf? And it's not just females, males too.
You have heard the touching stories of two girls. With Nomatemba, she came on after a four-time suicide attempt, and today she has a master's degree and is a teacher. You have heard from Hlengiwe. I want to introduce you to the third Soho ambassador. Her name is Pindile Mavuso. I want you to know that she is a profile in courage. And Pendile, I want you to be able to share what you choose from your heart. Tell them about yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Pindile Mavuso. I'm 28 years of age. Where can I start? It's a bit hard for me to open up, but I think this time I have to, because I might not know who I'm helping out there. Someone might be in a similar situation like mine. Someone might have went through to what I've been through before. So this time I also open up so that someone who's out there will see that they are not alone. This can happen to anyone. So in 2007, 14 March, I was raped by 2 men. That's something that's always haunting me, I can say, because it's hard to get over that thing, especially if they'll tell you something like something that you have to live with for the rest of your life. My mom is someone who's illiterate. She doesn't know anything. So she chased me away from home. I had to elope to South Africa. I had to stay with my family from my father's side. When I stayed there, you know, I could not bring anything because I was still young. I was 14 years old by that time. So I was introduced to this old man. He was working. He had money. He would buy them everything, what they needed. I had to stay with him, and he will sleep with me. Let me put it that way. He will sleep with me like every day, even when I was on my periods. I had to run away again. So even back at home, I had uncles from my mother's side. They used to sleep with me. I couldn't understand, when a family member is sleeping with you, you try to tell your mother, or you try to tell someone from your family. They won't believe you, and they'll want you to keep quiet and not say a word, since they don't want embarrassment. So I never told anyone until I told my mom this year. When I saw my uncle, I was so angry that I took a brick and hit him on the head. Then they were all amazed why I was doing that. Then I had to tell them that he used to sleep with me every day. When I ran away from that man, I went to Tonga police station. I asked to stay there as a prisoner because I had nowhere to go. Then they took me to this place, this orphanage place in Bosfontein. Things were so hard there. I stayed there. Okay, let me cut things short. I ended up calling home. I called my mom. She came. She didn't have money for me and her to go back home. So we had to walk until town, but eventually we got home. So what I can say is that whatever situation you're going through is a preparation for something that's coming your way.
You don't know. No one can predict the future. Whatever happens in your life won't kill you, but will only make you stronger. Thank you.
You are, in our eyes, the champion. Pendile is working with, I believe, a law firm now, and she has ambitions for the musical career and the business career. And Soho has stood as parents to these children. Thank you for sharing.
We just heard from 3 of the ambassadors from Soho, saving orphans through healthcare and outreach. Thank you, Ms. Cynthia Prime, for sharing their stories, their powerful stories. This is such an important work that is going on. This is the 8th year, or for the last 8 years, this event has happened. And it's between 2 international organizations, or 1 international organization on 2 continents, Africa and the United States. And so we want to make sure that you get the information that you are in need of. In order to do that, simply go to saving/orphans.org, and you'll have all the information there. Also, if you feel compelled to give to this organization, you can do so there. As Ms. Prime said earlier, they are in need of 3 wells, and they run about 3,500 for the children who are leading their households right there on the continent of Africa. 57% of those children are doing so through poverty, and so we are thankful that we are able to partner as Oakwood University with this organization. We're going to move now to our panel discussion. Well, we'll have quite a few individuals, young ladies who are sharing their stories as well as sharing the impact that this organization is having internationally. I want to invite in just a moment one of the legislators, a former legislator from the state of Indiana. She did some major work in her state for advocacy for women and children, young girls, to make sure that this pandemic will end gender-based violence. Christina Hale is working with Soho, and she has spent a lot of time advocating and ending human trafficking. I want to welcome at this time, and this is also your time to engage via our social media outlets with the panelists. Welcome, Ms. Christina Hale.
Hello, everyone. This has been a very powerful program already, and I just want to thank all of you who are tuning in to watch and to listen. These stories are powerful because they're authentic and they're true. And together, we have to address the issue of gender violence everywhere it exists in the world. And we've noticed over these past years, as we gather together, as Soho has brought together so many of us to take on this global challenge, the commonalities that we have, person to person, country to country. I have also worked for a global NGO dedicated to public health and children, an NGO called Kiwanis International. And while I worked there, I was responsible to launch a project to eliminate maternal and neonatal tetanus in the world. And this issue existed in the 38 countries where it was most difficult and dangerous for women to give birth. Countries where a woman would deliver a perfectly healthy baby, but that midwife might cut the umbilical cord with a dirty piece of metal or bamboo, and that baby would be fated to a horribly awful death. But I'd come home to the United States, to the state of Indiana, where I learned that we had some of those very same problems here, where we're supposed to be privileged and happy and wholesome. But I also discovered that we have outrageous rates of maternal and neonatal and infant mortality, some of the very worst rates of any state in the United States and of any state in the nation. And that is because, too, we've discovered that all too often these problems are in communities of color. And as a Cuban American woman, as I served in the Indiana General Assembly, I stood up to begin to fight back and to to be part of the solution. And that's why, too, I just want to say to all of the sponsors, and particularly for you, Cynthia Prime, who has stood as, you know, a pillar of strength and accomplishment to make things better. You're just so appreciated. And the work that you're continuing to do and this new project you've taken on to build will be a game changer, and it will make an incredible difference. But today we're going to have a short panel, and I'd like to introduce the panelists. And panelists too, if you would please stay in the order so that I read your names. And that way, when I ask a question, you can all just go one after the other to answer that question. And then afterward, I'll ask Gail to give us kind of a conversational wrap up. So I would like to begin introducing everyone. So I'll just read the names, and then I'll hand it over to the first panelist to answer the question. But we have the tremendous honor today to have Princess of Africa, Yvonne Shaka Shaka, with us. We have, and you've already heard from the distinguished Reverend Ntombi Naomi Tutu. We have Don Minot, who's done extensive work with UNICEF and in academia, and also my good friend, Gail Masondo, who will be wrapping up the conversation when we finish. But at the beginning, I was hoping we could start with our princess, Yvonne, and if you could please just share with us your story and why this issue of gender-based violence and standing up to fight and unite to make a difference is so important to you. Yvonne?
Hello, everyone, and thank you very much to Cynthia, Gail, and everyone. I'm quite impressed that we started with a prayer because I think that is what we need. This is a very, very important issue to me, and I must say thank you to Pindile. I didn't see the video, unfortunately. I watched it. But I think Pindile is a great, great advocate for young girls out there. And I'm sure we need more people to stand up and talk about these issues. In Africa, every minute, a woman gets maimed, gets raped, gets killed by those that are supposed to be protecting them, which are men. That is why the Princess of Africa Foundation has started a radio station called Woman Radio. It is a platform for women to talk about these issues. It's a platform for women to engage and empower themselves, and knowing that staying in an abusive marriage is not a good thing, and you are not doing it for anybody but for yourself. And I think it is important that whilst we're talking about our issues, we should be talking to our boy child, our men. We need them to be our great advocates, because we as women, we were taken from a man's rib, but to be loved, not to be trampled upon, not to be killed, not to be raped. So this is a great, great platform. And I'm happy to all women, women of color, because all women have been disenfranchised and segregated. But when we begin to stand together and talk about these issues, it becomes important, and we will be heard when we do this together. And to those girls who are in Swaziland, I want to say to them, be strong. And I'd like to also convey my condolences to the community of Swaziland, Eswatini, for losing the Prime Minister. It is just unfortunate that our Prime Minister succumbed to COVID-19 and he passed on. He was a great man, he was accessible, and he was a great politician. So to the people and the community of Eswatini, I'd like to send my condolences. But to Gail and Cynthia, who introduced me to Soho, I want to say to them, you are my hero. You both are my heroes, because it is important. We've had great leaders like Thomas Sankara, who believed in women empowerment. So it's not all, it wasn't that bad. What has changed? So we need to make sure that it begins in our homes. It must begin with us as mothers to tell our boy child that when you see your sister or a man, when you see a man, a woman, do not look at them as an object of desire. Look at them as a flower. Look at them as something to protect. Look at them as something that you can admire and love and guard and say, this is my life partner. So I really, really think it is time for us as women to empower ourselves, to educate ourselves, to make sure that the men that we live with really understand and not stay in abusive marriages. In our Black culture, as Pindile said, it is still happening even today, that when your uncle or your father does anything, you're not allowed to talk. I think it is imperative that when we talk about these issues, we need to teach our girl child that when somebody touches you inappropriately, you must begin to talk. It is important that you stand for yourself as a girl and say, no, do not touch me like this. So I'm very happy for this platform because we are going to educate one another. We're going to learn from one another and make sure that we do not compromise ourselves and say to those that have come out of these, you have stood the test of time and nothing has tainted you. You are what you are and you can never look back. Go forward and say every freckle is where it's supposed to be and love yourself because we are all men. But we who bring life into this world are well-organized men. Thank you very much.
And Reverend, if you would please answer the question as well, tell us your story and why the issue of gender violence resonates so deeply with you.
And before I talk, I have to show you my sweatshirt. Can y'all see that? Womandla.
Womandla.
And I would like to thank Professor Nadar and Feriel Marley from the Desmond Tutu Center for Religion and Social Justice at the University of Western Cape for this sweatshirt and for the work that they do around gender-based violence. And it is an honor to follow after Princess Africa Yvonne, who I think is my mother's favorite daughter. Even though she did not give birth to her. So here, my sister from another mother. It is such an honor to be on this panel with all of you amazing women. And for me, gender-based violence has a very personal impact. I was in an abusive relationship, and I was in an abusive relationship as a strong woman. So I am very clear that when we talk about gender-based violence, very often, we ask the question of the woman, of what was going on in your mind? Why would you allow this to happen? And I think going back to what Pindile was saying, that, this idea that the embarrassment is the shame of the victim rather than the perpetrator in our society. And I have to say that my experience happened in the United States, not in South Africa. So again, I want to be clear that even as we talk about the experience in Southern Africa, that we have to be clear that this is something that impacts women globally. And that the embarrassment of the victim is something that is part of the violence against women. The idea that the responsibility is then placed on the person who has suffered the violence, that they are questioned about what did you do to set him off, and that they then begin to ask themselves those questions because we as a society have placed gender-based violence as something different than violence. That, we talk about it as though it is not a crime. We talk about it as though there is something different about being abused by
somebody that you are intimate with. Yes, there is something different, but should be something that is worse, not something that as a society we say, well, you know, do we want to be involved in domestic issues? It should be worse when we are seeing women not safe in their own homes. And I think, as Yvonne said, that the education has to start in our homes, in teaching young men that they are to respect and treat women with respect. But it must also start in our laws and our justice system, that this is a crime. And the might of the state, of the justice system, should be strongly in opposition to this violence. It should not be an issue where the vast majority of people who do gender-based violence are never prosecuted. And then those who are prosecuted, very few are found guilty. And those who are found guilty, very few are found guilty of violence, of that, you know, that it is turned into something a little less than assault. It is assault, and our justice system needs to recognize it as that.
That's very true. Thank you so much, Reverend Tutu. Dawn, could you share your story with us, please?
Most certainly. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening from wherever you're joining. What an absolute pleasure to be on this esteemed panel. I just want to make one clarification. Though I work very closely with UNICEF, I'm actually with the United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA, and UNFPA is a sexual reproductive health agency of the United Nations. So I'm pleased to be here. You know, Yvonne, I know your music. When I lived in South Africa, I always thought I'd come to one of your concerts and you'd sign my CD cover. So to be on this panel with you is quite an honor. And Reverend Tutu, what can I say, to be with you at this time? You know, it's hard for me to just address Gail as Gail, because I've only ever called her Auntie Gail. And thank you, Auntie Gail, for facilitating this panel, and also to you, Cynthia, as well. So this issue resonates with me. I want to make 2 points on this question, Christine. One is because of the magnitude of the problem that we're up against. And this has also worsened and intensified under this pandemic. In the time that we've been having this discussion, just in this hour plus, thousands of women and girls have experienced one form of violence or the other. It may have been physical, sexual, or psychological, because we know that around the world, 1 in 3 women will experience some form of physical or sexual violence in their lifetime. So as the United Nations, we are working collectively with partners, and I'm so happy to be on this platform with SOHO, because we work very closely with religious and civil society organizations towards the achievement of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And anybody who works for the UN, you will always hear us talking about the Sustainable Development Goals and the targets that we've set ourselves to reach by 2030. And one of those goals is very specific towards gender equality and women's empowerment. So that is dear not just to me as a woman, it's dear to me personally and professionally. And one of the things I have to say here is that in order for us to truly achieve sustainable development, it cannot happen in a world where discrimination against women is widespread, or where women and girls cannot live free from violence in all of its forms, in all the spaces that they occupy, including online. Everywhere that women and girls occupy should be a safe space. And the second reason why this is dear to my heart, I'm going to just draw on my experience having lived in northern Nigeria. I was based in Kaduna, where I was managing the Office for the United Nations Population Fund. And on my birthday, and this is why this stands out so much for me beyond the fact of the issue I will speak of. But on my birthday in 2014, April 14, 2014, Boko Haram kidnapped almost 300 girls from their school in Chibok. And that happened in Borno State, the state that was one of the states being covered by my office. So I was intimately involved in what was happening with these girls. And for me, you know, the global north really came to realize what was happening because of the publicity that was around the issues that happened with these girls in Chibok. But long before and after that incident, you know, women are systematically abducted, raped. And this happens not just in Nigeria, but around the world. And so one of the issues for me that I think is very important for us to address and why this is so dear to my heart, and, you know, as Ping Liwei, I hope I got your name right, as she was speaking, it really resonated with my spirit, because what she was talking about is how the bodies of women and girls are being weaponized. And we often think about this in the context of war, but in civil and community unrest, where women and girls are abducted and raped, I think it's very important for us to also talk about the weaponizing of women's bodies as instruments of war, be it in times of peace, when we have community unrest or otherwise. And, you know, addressing all of this is critical for us to engage men and boys in meaningful ways so that we can have a whole of society response to what's happening to women and girls in terms of violence, be it in, you know, physical, emotional, or otherwise. So I'll stop there on what's driving me in terms of my personal and professional commitments to this work.
Very good, very powerful. And thank you too for bringing up the issue of safe spaces online as well as in person. That's critical moving forward when we have so many nations without even laws to protect children, women, and girls from that kind of predation. But Gail, if you would now, Auntie Gail, if you'd share with us your story and why this resonates so deeply with you.
You know, I'm glad that we're on Oakwood's campus because I experienced personal violation, assault, and a date rape experience. I was a freshman. I didn't attend Oakwood University. I attended Union College, which is in Nebraska. I'm a native of New York. I grew up also in a gender-based war zone. My father was an alcoholic, and there were many nights that we experienced, all of us in the house, myself, my mother, my brother, my father's violent temper. It would be, as an adult living in South Africa, writing my memoir, that I would find out then that at 19, he was sent to the Korean War. And for the use of a better term, but the correct term, it was one of the reasons why I went to study behavioral science and psychology. I wanted to know why people did what they did. My father motivated that interest or that curiosity. But I would find out, as I mentioned, as an adult, that he was shell-shocked. He was mentally ill. So there were many nights we were the enemy. And so I grew up with an estranged relationship with my mom because I wanted to know, why were we stuck in this cycle? And it changed. Let me tell you, abuse, even now as a counselor in the clinical space, I want to say that abuse changes the fabric of who we were meant to be. Whether it be physical, whether it be sexual, whether it be, gosh, Naomi, religious abuse, whatever, you know, financial abuse, whatever it is, whatever the weapon, it changes who you were meant to be. There is a scar on your soul. There's a hole in your soul. And I speak from that place because while I am a counselor, while I am a chaplain, I still to this day have triggers. I still have certain things that remind me. And I must also say that the victim, I think of myself as a survivor. We do what we have seen, not necessarily what we know. And so I found myself being abusive in ways of relating. So this becomes so important to me because on a university campus, we have to do more than just talk. We have to be able to engage. And I wish we had thought of having some young men be a part of this panel, not to male bash, but to be able to give them a voice to talk about what's going on in their heads as well. You know, often when I'm out speaking to conferences and things, it's very important for me to say, because I live with a great man, that men are needing opportunity too to speak. Some of them have not had fathers, or if they have, the father role has been diminished. And I'm not talking about Africa, I'm talking about the globe. The male person is not there. And if he is there, he's there providing the house, and he's providing, you know, he's providing to pay for school, but he's emotionally absent. And so it is a call for, can we talk? But after talking, Micah tells us, do justice, love mercy, walk humbly. Because we all have the potential to be abusive. We really do. Tonight we're talking about GBV. And I just really want to thank Pendili, really. I mean, she was nervous before she started. And for her to come and share so much of herself this evening, so much of her personal life, I just want to personally thank her. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Naomi. Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you, Cynthia, because this has given us an opportunity, and hopefully we can come back. But I really want to speak. I really want to have men engage with us as well. Thank you, Christine.
Well, thank you. And our time for the panel is running short. So I may just ask everyone to briefly comment on some of the themes that are coming out: the weaponization of girls and women, the commodification of girls and women, and the politicization of girls and women all over the world and in different iterations wherever we happen to be. For example, human trafficking and the selling of our girls and women is not confined to one geographical space or to that previous point that was made by Dawn, even to a virtual space. So if we could start with our princess once again, and if you could briefly just comment on that topic and perhaps tell us your greatest worry as it relates to gender violence moving forward during this time of such upheaval and fractiousness all over the world.
Thank you very much once again. I think it is very sad because we need the powers that be. We need the whole political will to fight this war. Women on their own will never fight this war. We need to make sure that our male counterparts are our best advocates, as I said. And it is sad when you even hear that the soldiers, or maybe the UN soldiers, you know, are sometimes found to be part of abusing our children when we look up to them as the people who will be guarding us and protecting us. So it is something that really needs a lot of work, because those that you think are going to protect you ends up being the ones who mess you up. And in different countries, when you go to the DRC or even in Sudan and all those places, women are being raped as a political war. You know, they use them and they rape them for such. And it is very, very sad. I'm really not sure what the AU, the UN is doing. I know a lot is being done, but so much is just happening to our women and girl child. In South Africa, you even find elderly women, your 90-year-olds, getting raped So I think we are dealing with psychopaths here. Something needs to be done. You know, we need to go back to the drawing board and do lots of things. Gail, as she was saying, no woman wants to fall pregnant for 9 months and knowing that you are carrying a psychopath or a killer or a person who's going to just maim people. It starts in our homes. As our priest sisters say, our justice systems are failing women, not only in Africa, but worldwide. So we really need more women in these positions to change things.
Very good. Thank you. Reverend, could you please comment?
Yes, thank you. Thank you again, my sister. You know, obviously the institution that I serve in, the church, I think has a huge role to play in this area. We have allowed scripture to be used to justify the oppression of women, that we have allowed it to be used to say that women must be submissive to men, even up to and including violence against them, which was never a teaching of Jesus's. That and that we have set up systems in the church that disempower women, and given how important religion is to so many around the world, I think that we do have a responsibility as the churches to take a much more vocal stance against gender-based violence, that it should be something that is taught in our Bible studies, that is taught in our confirmation classes, that is spoken about in our premarital counseling, that we insist people get premarital counseling before they marry. And yet very few of the premarital counseling things that I've seen speak at all about violence against women. And yet we know that is a real experience of many women in marriages. So I call on the religious community to truly take a stand and speak from the pulpit, speak in prayer, speak in our the leaflets we send out, because I think that part of what allows gender-based violence to continue like this is that it is not challenged. It is not spoken about by institutions that people listen to. And so people do listen to the church. We have seen sometimes they listen to the wrong churches. Okay, but that's a conversation for another day. But that we as church leaders have an absolute responsibility. And I think that that's part of what I bring onto this panel, is to say that as the church, we need to stand and speak. And we need to make it clear that the people in our pews who are suffering from gender-based violence or who are perpetrators of gender-based violence have a place to come in the church to have the conversations around how do we end this. So, yeah, my little 2 cents.
Well, thank you. And Dawn, we'll turn now to you, please, if you could share with us your thoughts.
Reverend Tutu, I could not agree with you more. The power of the church, particularly under this pandemic, the church has been the first responder, whether it be to gender-based violence, whether it be to food insecurity, whether it be to a response to a pandemic like this or, other epidemics that we've had. So I could not agree with you more on the comments that you've made. And it's partly why, my agency, the UNFPA, and other UN agencies work so closely with religious leaders and faith-based organizations. Christine, if I could just throw in a couple of points into our conversation. just looking at the wider context within which we are operating, issues around gender inequality, for example, and the unequal distribution of power between women and men. These are some of the root causes of gender-based violence in even the context of patriarchy or the context of gender and social norms. And so having this conversation outside the context of those structures does not give us the tools that we need to change, right? So I think it's very important to recognize that we're working within some limitations in terms of the structure that we're in. And in working within those limitations, how do we work with men, engaging men? This point has been made before. How do we engage with men and boys at a very early age to not only for the advocacy around the reproductive health and rights of women, but for their rights as men and boys as well. And the second point I'd like to bring in here, you talked, Christina, a little bit earlier around politicization and how that impacts the work that we are trying to do in terms of eliminating violence against women and girls. And one of the things that I'd like to bring into our conversation is when you politicize any issue at all, what you're doing is playing that, that zero-sum game. If I win, then you lose. And in this context of the severity of violence against women and girls, there is no win or lose. It's lose-lose if we're thinking about in the context of our overall community, of our overall society. When issues are politicized, the victim becomes the other. And when you are othered, you are silenced. And so we need to really pull away from, politicizing these kinds of issues, but to recognize that, the extent to which violence is happening in our communities is to the level where the state has to be responsible. We talked earlier about accountability, that women and girls have the right, it's a human right, to be safe in every space that they occupy. This is the right that the state is responsible for and to be held accountable for ensuring that these rights happen. And the one thing I'd like to say in wrapping up is that though we have been focusing on the issue as it relates to women and girls, we really also have to take into consideration the real needs of male survivors of domestic violence and sexual violence as well. It is not one or the other. Both sides of the coins have to be addressed equally. And finally, why we want to amplify, however, the violence against women and girls is because a person's risk of gender-based violence is subject to personal, to situational, to social factors, including gender dynamics. And these place individuals, particularly women and girls, at higher risk of violence that is gender-based. And so, yes, we do want to pay attention to the violence against men. Yes, we do want to engage men and boys in our responses. But we also have to recognize that the structure within which we work, within patriarchy, within the social and gender norms that have guided our societies, that the impact on women and girls is far greater and therefore prioritized, particularly for the agency I work for, in our response.
So we want to thank every one of our panelists. I'm sorry, Christine, go ahead.
Oh, I was just about to turn it over to you, Gail, to wrap it up. But I did want to thank Dawn, too, for bringing up the issue of positional power and the structures that we live in. The global average when it comes to a school board, parliament, Congress, any sort of governing body, only 1/5 of our elected lawmakers globally are women. And I believe we're not only game changers, but we need to be the decision makers. And it's time for us to take our place in positional leadership so that we're casting the votes, creating the laws. And I think it's going to take this level of participation by women to make real change. And I just want to finish by telling you how honored I am to be with you on this call, our Zoom workshop. You are amazing, brilliant women, and it's just it's very inspiring to me. It brings great hope during a difficult time for the world, and I'm just absolutely inspired and honored by you. Thank you. And Gail, too, if you would take it from here.
Thank you. Our time is precious. I just really want to thank the panel. Thank you so much. And Christine, I'm one of your fans. Thank you, Naomi. I love you and I want the t-shirt. Dawn, you have always meant so much to me. And Yvonne, thank you for your sisterhood. And Cynthia, thank you. You did it. You and Maureen did it. And Craig. Thank you, and thank you, Oakwood, for hosting us and having us. And we're grateful for the opportunity to be able to speak not only from our heads, but from our hearts. May God bless you, and to those who are listening tonight, this morning, this afternoon, wherever you are, we're grateful that you joined us. God bless you. Keep the conversation going. Keep hope rising. Hope is rising. God bless you.
We have listened, we have been blessed, we have been inspired. Gail, you are so right. It took all the courage in the world, all the years of hurt for these girls to open up. And they open up because they know that if you hear, then you too would be part of the solution. Thank you. I am so honored. That panel, what can I say? I'm speechless. And Gail, what a blessing. All of you, Yvonne, Naomi, I thank God for all of you. Dawn, I do. And let us look at it this way. We have to stand up, and you have stood up in your dialogue. We have to speak up. Those girls have spoken. And we are looking at hands-on solutions such as those that Soho is putting out. We want a village of hope on this mountaintop. We want a retreat place where women from around the world can come and be empowered. And so I am asking those who are listening, don't be passive. This is not a time for passive inaction. Take a step. Support the programs that we have. Lift your voice. Be part of what's going on in your church. I thank Oakwood University, and I look forward to the collaboration that we would have as we build for the future. Thank you all, and God bless you, and God bless my angels at Soho here who work night and day. There's Craig Martindale and Maureen and the team. Thank you all for the difference you have made today. God bless you all.
It's not only the pandemic that we can cure, but it's the pandemic that God can cure. And so this has been a very robust discussion today that has enlightened quite a few, and I want to thank you for joining us. But before we sign off, we've invited our Senior Associate Chaplain, Chaplain Corey Douglas, to pray for Soho and the initiatives, and that God will move in your heart as we are fighting this pandemic. Chaplain Douglas.
Thank you. Let us go ahead and bow our heads and pray together. Our Father God, we're just so grateful today for your grace and for your mercy. We're so grateful today, God, that we as humans are not the ones that are in charge or control, but we can take solace in the fact that you, the God of the universe, know all things and remain in utter control. And even though looking out into our world, God, it doesn't always seem as if things are going according to your plan or going according to the way we want it to, we know, God, that you know the end from the beginning. So we pray for all of those who have been victims of gender-based violence. We pray for all these young women, God, and even young men who have had to endure the tragedies and trials of life. And we're praying not just that you will heal them of their traumas, but that at the end of the day, God, you will figure out and find a way for them to come to know you, to come to know your Son, whom your word says to know is life eternal. We pray for the Soho Initiative in Oakwood as we partner together, that you will help us to affect lives for change. And not just for change down here on this world, God, not just so that they can have better lives, but we're praying, God, that we may do it for the sake of your kingdom, so that one day, even after the tragedies and tribulations of life, that they can stand on a sea of glass, numbered among a number of people who cannot be numbered, singing the song of Moses and the Lamb. To this end we pray, in Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Chaplain Douglas. We want to thank you also for joining us today for this important conversation. I am very well aware that there is gender-based violence that happens between this continent as well as the continent of Africa. And if you have not been one of the victims, there is someone very close to you that has been. And so I want you to pray on how you can benefit from sharing this organization with others. Soho is doing their fundraising at this time, and you can partner financially. They are in need of 3 wells, which will cost $3,500, and you can go to saving-orphans.org to do that. I want to thank Ms. Cynthia Prime, the CEO and co-founder of Saving Orphans through Healthcare and Outreach, for joining us today. I'm excited about the partnership that Oakwood University will have with this organization, as we'll be doing what we need to do to be the hands and feet of Jesus, and as Dr. Pollard said earlier, to mobilize and to make sure that this pandemic can be cured. I'm Audrey Johnson. It's been a blessing being with you for this important conversation. Please make sure that you go to their website, saving-orphans.org, to be a part of this mission. God bless you and have a great day.